mackerel, broccoli, and homemade pickles, inevitably transformed into a hand grenade of appalling smelliness. Pip dreaded opening the lid. It was like setting off a stink bomb. The ripe bin lorry stench would hit him full in the face, then whoosh outwards, spreading across the room and causing everybody to do a stadium wave of nose-wrinkling, face-scrunching and gagging noises. After the first few times, Pip learned that it was better if he ate his lunch alone, in the furthest corner of the schoolyard. With lunches like his, it had been impossible to make any friends. But his mother looked so surprised and upset whenever he mentioned he didn't like her food that he had long since dropped the subject. He tossed the Brussels sprout out of the car window when no one was looking and wondered what his new school would be like. At least he didn't have to start until after the half-term break at Halloween, so he had several weeks of freedom before he had to figure out how to blend in all over again. He was pretty certain that his parents would be as peculiar in London as they had been in Norwich. In the next lane, a Range Rover had pulled up beside them. A boy a few years older than Pip was sitting in the passenger seat, shaking with laughter. He had his phone pressed to the window and seemed to be videoing the Ruskins' car. For a moment, Pip stared at him, wondering what was so funny. The fact that the little car was 20 years old? The bright turquoise paint? A second later, Pip realised what it was, and his heart sank. The chaos of the move and leaving in the early morning darkness had made him forget his usual routine. He had forgotten to clean the car. "Dad," he croaked. There was no reply. Mr. Ruskin was singing to himself again. "Dad!" he tried again. He kicked the back of the driver's seat and the singing stopped. "What is it, son?" "The car," said Pip. "Did you remember to clean it?" "Of course not," replied his father. "I don't know why you're always so worried about it. Who cares about a little mess?" To describe what had happened to the outside of the car as a little mess was like calling the Prime Minister a little famous, or the devil a little evil. Pip didn't need to see the video the boy in the next lane was clearly uploading to the internet to know what the outside of the car looked like. He knew that the roof, the bonnet, and all four sides of it were covered in a thick layer of lumpy bird poo. The problem had started 4 years ago, when a pair of swallows decided to build their nest in the garage, which also doubled as a storage space for Mr. Ruskin's unsuccessful antiques business. There was only one area that wasn't crammed to the rafters with old furniture, and that happened to be the spot right above the car. Soon, the swallows multiplied, more nests appeared, and every single bird decided that the Ford Fiesta was their preferred toilet spot. "Swallows nesting in your building are lucky," Mr. Ruskin had said. "And if a bird poos on you, that's lucky too. So if we have swallows living in our garage and pooing on our car, well, that means we'll have more luck than we'll know what to do with." It had not been very lucky for Pip. Every afternoon during the summer term, his father would drive up to Pip's school far too early and park right in front of the gates in full view of Pip's classroom. Before long, someone would spot it. A note would be passed around, and by the time the final bell rang, the entire class would be collapsing with laughter, and Pip would be bright red with embarrassment. He'd rush out of school as fast as possible, hoping that if he was quick enough, he might be able to get away before any more students got a chance to see it. But it was no use. He had become firmly associated with the Poo-mobile, as it was known, and although everyone usually forgot about it by winter, the swallows would return the following spring, and the whole horrible cycle would begin again. This year, the swallows had stayed unusually late. They were obviously enjoying themselves. Since he was 10, Pip had covered the car with a sheet of plastic each evening, and every morning he carefully cleaned off all the bird poo that had missed the sheet. But last night he hadn't remembered to put on the plastic sheet, and they had left so early in the morning that it had still been dark. He hadn't even thought about what might have happened to the car during the night. The traffic lights turned green, and they lurched forwards. The pile of suitcases toppled over and crashed on top of Pip. By the time he'd freed himself, they were heading through a maze of city streets. "Nearly there," said Mr. Ruskin, squinting at the sat-nav. They went past a large...